Well, Greeny, we're halfway through another baseball season, and we're really seeing some players who stand out as winners.
Kind of like business travelers who win at business by staying at La Quinta Inns and Suites.
That's because you can put your La Quinta Returns loyalty points to work on the spot with instant free nights.
Just drive up with no reservation and instantly redeem points for a free night that same night simply by using the La Quinta app.
It's like hitting a grand slam.
With an app instead of a bat.
Well played.
Prepare to win at business by learning more about instant free nights and check out the summer rates at lq.com. Here we are, back in better than ever. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line. And the summer blockbusters just keep on coming. Forget about superheroes. We've got NBA stars. LeBron, Kyrie, Stephen A. What a day yesterday was as we just sit back and watch the NBA season soap opera, and that's what it is, playing out, Golick, in real time, directly in front of our eyes, all across social media and beyond.
It really is, and that's where we are, because there are so many other important actual things going on in the world of sports than to hear people bicker at one another. I mean, I
can't think of one.
It's ridiculous. It is just ridiculous. But we can't avert our eyes.
I love it.
As I said, NBA Twitter is the best Twitter, and the NBA drama and beefs are the best beefs out there, and they seem so petty, it's just ridiculous.
You know what's funny is that yesterday you did your imitation of these NBA stars as though they were like middle schoolers.
Yes, yeah, like 10-year-olds, yeah.
And a little older than 10-year-olds.
Okay, I'm 12.
Maybe slightly older.
13.
For the purposes of that I'm about to make here,
what age do you want
like
them to be?
13 or 14.
13 or 14.
And then I thought, oh, how funny and what a cute example for Golick to use. And then I got home and my son Steven said to me, did you hear Kyrie unfollowed LeBron on Instagram?
How old is your son?
He's 14.
There you go.
And I thought to myself, that's exactly it. You weren't kidding.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not. And right when Steven said that, there should have been the sound. Dun, 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 dun. I mean, yeah, that's what it should have been.
We had an unfollowing.
It's unbelievable. And then it's LeBron clapping back at Stephen A. And, of course, Stephen A. doesn't back down no matter what. You know, so, ooh. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, holy – but thank you. Thank you, because we're getting through July to training camps with all this stuff. So we really appreciate the idiocy.
You know, the bigger they are, the harder they fall kind of a line goes in with this. NBA stars are any number of things. Among them, they're the biggest celebrities we have. Mm-hmm. In our little world of sport, in this little niche that we occupy in the sports world, they're the biggest stars we have. Couple quarterbacks,
sure.
Sort of go in there. You know, maybe Tom Brady.
Brady and Rodgers. I think
that's
those two guys.
That sort of go in there. But as far as like true, bona fide, dyed-in-the-wool celebrities, LeBron James and Kyrie Irving are that. In the same, every bit as much as the people that are in these trashy magazines you love to buy on airplanes
from the sports world, the LeBron, the Kevin Durant's, the Kyrie, you know, Chris Paul making the new, all these guys, Paul George. I mean, at different times, you're exactly right. They're the standout talk,
especially now. Not only with the. I guess people would be at least a little bit interested in sort of the salacious details of their lives, the way people pay attention to those of movie stars. But when it comes to the athletes, their personal life is this stuff.
Yes, it is.
This is the drama.
Right.
This would be like when Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie broke up,
mm-hmm.
and that was those two names accounted in some order for 8 of the top 10 trending topics on Twitter for like 2 days. That's what this is. LeBron James and Kyrie Irving are breaking up, and we're fascinated by it because they're major celebrities, and this is their personal life, and we're all in.
Where we should feel pretty good, because did you see the article about the top 10 sports breakups?
No.
You and I are number 5.
Really?
Number 5.
Who beat us?
I don't know. I'd have to get the articles. I forgot who put it out there, but yeah. We're number 5. I was hoping we'd. To which my wife immediately tweeted, "We're number 5."
Well, I mean, I think that's good. Although, I mean, I think we could have been a little higher than that.
I think so as well.
How many years you have to do this thing before you can get it back higher than number 5?
So we'll have to see.
I didn't even see the list.
Yeah. The list is out there. We were number 5.
But forgetting that for the moment, and the thing that's going on here is, what is the game? A telephone where. It starts out as one thing.
Story, and by the end.
And by the end, it's another thing. So I saw LeBron's response. What he actually responded to was Slam Magazine on Twitter, right? He didn't directly respond to Stephen A., but Slam Magazine was basically quoting Stephen A.'s report.
Right.
And that's what LeBron responded to. But the parts of it, when I first saw it, when I first saw LeBron's response, I didn't think he was saying that Stephen A's report was fake news. That's not what I thought he was saying. I thought he was saying that he doesn't feel the way the original story that I saw was Slam Magazine tweeted a story saying LeBron James cannot wait for Kyrie Irving to get traded out of Cleveland. And that was what I saw LeBron respond to. Mm-hmm. And that is not exactly what Stephen A said. Stephen A didn't say LeBron James can't wait for him to get traded out of Cleveland. Stephen A said that people in LeBron's camp, I mean, you heard it here, we played it, everybody played it,
right.
That people in LeBron's camp said that LeBron was incredibly upset with Kyrie because they believe Kyrie's camp was the one that leaked the fact that Kyrie demanded a trade, and that LeBron, if he was in front of him, might want to kick his behind. Mm-hmm. That specifically is what Stephen A said. So it felt to me a little bit yesterday like the whole thing was like a game of telephone. Like people were responding to things that weren't actually said, which is what happens when people aren't actually talking to each other,
to one another,
but instead are talking at the world.
And you broke it down way more than I would have, because I could care less. I mean, seriously.
I kind of like it.
If LeBron is mad at Stephen A or said get the facts right, was it at Stephen A or was it at the article? I just didn't delve too much into that to really start to break that down, because at the end of the day, I don't really care.
I care.
But I understand it's fun to talk about.
I delved and I care.
I didn't delve.
I'm endlessly
You went off the high board right
into
it, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. I admit it. I am all in on this. I'm fascinated by this show. Look, I'm a sports guy. At the end of the day, I like sports.
Yeah.
These are my celebrities. I mean, this to me is infinitely, let's put it this way. It has greater, well, I'm not going to say it has greater consequence than a married couple breaking up, because it does not.
Oh, God, no.
With kids. But I mean, if these two guys do part, it will impact my life as a sports fan significantly more than a Hollywood couple splitting up. Again, I don't want to equate that as a marriage and there are kids and all of that, but that's their life and it isn't mine, whereas this is all of our lives. We're sports fans. This is the second best team in the NBA and the only one that has any conceivable chance of making next year in the NBA interesting, breaking up before the season even starts.
A couple things. First, it gets me through July. That's my main thing. Listen, I'm going to be flat out honest about this. I don't care. If Kyrie's on another team, we talk about Kyrie on another team. You know, does it hurt the team where I was born and raised? Yeah, it does. But there's two things. Number one, it gets me through July. I'll be completely honest about that. The other is it blows my mind how people can't have a conversation. It eternally blows my mind that people just can't talk. And then we get it all through text and social media. That's how conversations go, that the art of an actual face-to-face conversation, a telephone conversation, God forbid that happen anymore, ever happen. That, out of all this stuff, that's what blows my mind the most, that people just can't have a conversation. Because other than that, I just chuckle at all of this, again, and say thank you, because camps are about ready to start in both NFL and college football, and we can start going in that direction.
To take that to a slightly another level, that might actually be a function in this particular case and going forward generationally.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
These are people,
yes.
Even LeBron James, who's 32
is
of a generation, and certainly a generation younger than these guys. I mean, the generation that your kids are and my kids are, they don't really have conversations.
No, they do not.
I mean, the art of that has sort of been lost. Even a phone conversation. At this point, my children consider texting to be a dated medium. They only correspond with their friends via Snapchat.
Listen, I agree. I'll have a phone conversation every now and then with my daughter Sydney, who's 20 to 22 years old. 21?
She's 22.
She's 22?
Yeah.
22. Thanks. and 2 minutes into it, she'll like start to get aggravated at something because like we're talking. And I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna hang up and text you, okay? Because it just doesn't flow with them. People that generation could have a complete conversation in emojis, and understand absolutely everything they're saying. Blows my mind. It's amazing.
But it is the reality of it.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that accounts for this exactly. The LeBron-Kyrie thing is a couple of levels beyond that.
Agreed.
And the truth of the matter is, I don't really know what's going on, and maybe that's why I'm so fascinated. Does Kyrie want out because he just doesn't want to play in the shadow of LeBron anymore? Or does he want out because he wants to get out while the getting is good because he can see after next year LeBron's gone and they're going to be awful and he doesn't have any confidence
and they're probably not
in the
going to
organization going forward, and they'll never trade him then.
Hang on to him, yeah.
And they'll still have one more year left on his deal at that point. I personally am very curious about the answer to that because I think it will inform a lot of things. I've always been under the impression that guys loved playing with LeBron, that LeBron's teammates, in some ways, unlike the other, if you look at the greats, Kobe Bryant's teammates, I think, found him very hard to play with. Michael Jordan's teammates definitely found him hard to play with. I've always been under the impression LeBron's teammates loved playing with him.
Well, see, that again is where we don't know. One thing you do know is if you play with LeBron, you're just about guaranteed. I won't use your 100%, but you're pretty close to being guaranteed going and playing in the finals. But I don't know the insides of that. You start to hear the stories about the friends being able to go on the planes and others not. I don't know how much that affects people's grind on day to day, but what I do say, and I've said it and it's true, is there's a hierarchy everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere in every sport. To what level just depends on the player and the sport. So that's what I don't know the inside of that too. Yeah, we get to go to the finals, but when you're with the same group every single day more than your family, maybe some of it does get grating. Maybe now you're to the point I won a championship. I got to the top of the mountain. I'm 25 years old. I need to move on from this stuff. I don't know. I don't know. We're not there to the day because on the outside looking in, you would say, oh, my God, you play with LeBron, you're going to the finals, you have a chance for a championship. Who wouldn't love that? Well, you know what? We're not in the day-to-day. And the day-to-day is obviously the reality of not what we see sitting back saying, wow, what a rosy, great picture that must be.
Correct. And it isn't as though he hasn't been a star also.
Right.
Like, yeah, LeBron's the star of the team. Yeah, it's LeBron's team. But Kyrie his star has only risen
completely
exponentially since LeBron's arrival. Everyone knew Kyrie Irving as the number one pick, and he was a good young player and developing before LeBron got there, but he's on terrible teams. He wasn't a major star. And then LeBron gets there, they're in the finals every year, and now he is a superstar. So it's also not as though he's not been able to flourish, brand-wise and all of that.
And it's got to be tough. The only star better than you on your team is the greatest player in the game today.
Right.
I mean,
that's either good or it's bad. Like,
exactly.
Everyone wasn't meant to be Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen, and I know I keep repeating this over the years. I mean, I was there to watch this. Scottie Pippen, there were many times he didn't love it. There were many times he didn't love just always being number two. But he recognized the value of it, and he was generally good with it. Now, moving on, to use the analogy you just used about star treatment, I'd love to hear about some examples of that you saw during your career. Because what I remember was, in those days, players didn't take games off. There was no resting during games. No. But Phil would give guys practices off. So if they had 3 games in 4 nights, Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan wouldn't practice. Mm-hmm. Horace Grant,
who's the next guy in line,
would get furious.
Right. Who's the next guy in line?
He was furious. Wait a minute. I should be with them.
So the line is drawn.
That had been drawn by Phil, and Horace didn't like it. And so now maybe Kyrie thinks there were some lines being drawn on the wrong side of him. Did you see that happen?
Well, I mean, you just kind of you just naturally see it. Guys will get a preferential treatment. Guys can bring other guys around more than others.
When you were playing?
Where I'd be in a position where I wouldn't feel like I could ask that. Others, stars could just bring, and it's not like they were just flaunting it; they just could do it, so they would do it.
Do what? Like bring friends on the team plane or whatever?
No. It's a little more cut and dry in the NFL when you're going on these quick trips,
right?
Like that. But you know what? I didn't see any of that. I don't know if it didn't happen. It's not like I all these guys that I hung out with all the time. I didn't bring.
But I mean, would the coach? In your day, would Buddy Ryan treat Reggie White and Jerome Brown differently than he would treat other guys?
Oh, absolutely. Buddy Ryan definitely treated the star players differently. But you know what? He's not alone in doing that. Right. Again, the Jimmy Johnson story of cutting a backup who fell asleep, and you think he's cutting Troy Aikman in a meeting. If he fell asleep in a meeting, you get treated differently. It comes with the territory. You absolutely know that's going to happen. You understand that. But to your point, there's a difference of me getting treated differently than Reggie White. But you have Reggie White, you have Clyde Simmons, you have Jerome Brown, you have Seth Joyner, you have Eric Allen. So if you have those guys and more, I don't leave people out. What if Buddy only preferential treatment to 3 of those. That's more along the lines of, now there's Horace Grant saying, well, wait a minute, I'm not going to feel slighted, Mike Golick, but if Eric Allen is left out of that, is he feeling slighted? Or Seth Joyner left out? And I'm just using those names because we had a lot of stars on that defense. Yeah. But so what if the line was there? Would there be bad feelings? So that's what I'm talking about. And all those guys were treated really, obviously, really well by Buddy. I'm just trying to make an example of this. The other thing I'll say is, of the ones you mentioned Kobe, you mentioned Jordan, you mentioned LeBron. Only one of those guys played with somebody else who was equal. Jordan never played with anybody equal.
Right.
LeBron never played with anybody equal. It was Kobe, and it was Shaq. And how'd that work out?
Very badly.
But very great, but then very badly.
Right.
3 championships, and you thought, my God, where could this thing go? And they just couldn't deal with it. They couldn't handle it, the two of them, because they were both alphas. They were both Batmans. They were both Supermans. And that's never been an issue with LeBron, even though when LeBron went to Miami, they were trying who's going to defer Dwayne and Chris Boswell. But it went exactly the way everybody thought. LeBron's the best player. LeBron's going to have the ball. LeBron's going to decide what to do with it. That was never an issue in going back to Cleveland that he was going to be the man. It was only out of those 3 examples, it was Kobe and Shaq who were both the alphas.
We're Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. More independent agents sell Progressive Insurance than any other brand. Find an agent at Progressive.com. Now that's Progressive. Skip off the top here because this is really the meat of the conversation.
Maybe quickly, in the beginning of that Kobe Shaq was more the alpha, maybe because Kobe was younger coming in, obviously. Yeah. So,
but as they certainly developed,
they turned into both alphas on the same team.
Yeah, and all kinds of things happened in that relationship and happened to them. And look, that was a soap opera too.
Without a doubt.
I mean, in every conceivable way, that was a soap opera that played out very publicly. Good little illustration from Hembo of the way Kyrie's star has risen. Did you know that during the 12 months that ended in March of this year, so the most recent data that we have, according to Forbes, the only signature shoe that sold more than Kyrie's shoe was LeBron. Mm. So LeBron was the number 1 selling shoe. Kyrie was the number 2 selling shoe. So it's not as though he hasn't become a major star. It's not as though he doesn't have a huge brand.
And they're worldwide because he's in China now, Beijing, isn't he?
He certainly was. He was in China when the story was breaking on Friday.
Right.
I don't know if he's back yet or not, but it's a much smaller world for people who travel the way he does.
Oh, it sure is.
He could have come back without our knowledge. But at any rate, I understand what you're saying, that it's all kind of goofy and soap opera-y and fun.
Sick.
But for the same reasons that you enjoy reading the whatever it is,
yes.
Us magazine,
yes.
This is my Us magazine.
I'm with you. Listen, that's why I said I'm with you. It gets us through July. It's fun to talk about, but boy, it's quite honestly, it's a bit meaningless.
You want another? It's total. Well, that part of it is meaningless.
Yeah.
If he winds up getting traded, it's not meaningless. I mean, from a sports standpoint, this is hardly meaningless.
Yes.
The breakup of LeBron James and Kyrie Irving right now is not meaningless at all, and it won't be meaningless because this is not a case. This is not going to be a Paul George trade where you wind up trading, guys named Oladipo and Sabonis.
Right.
This is going to be a trade that is going to involve potentially people named Anthony or Porzingis, but probably not. Or major names. Like you got people in Phoenix reassuring Josh Jackson he's not going to get traded. This is going to involve other significant players around the NBA. So this is going to be a big deal, I think.
Did I see on the 6 last night that the odds still said he was going to be back in Cleveland? I think it was still 1-1 that he was going to be back in Cleveland next year.
It just popped up on the screen. Can you read that? Odds that Kyrie will play where he'll play next year. Cleveland 1-1, Knicks 4-1. Suns, does that say 9-2? Celtics 13-2. I'm reading a screen that's not all.
Yeah, I can't see it all that well.
I think that's what it says.
But Cavs are at the top, though. Cavs are at the top of him staying there. Because remember, the Cavs don't have to trade him.
No, they don't.
It's just the fact that the Cavs want to deal. We're going to talk with Chauncey Billups at 9 Eastern. We talk about makeup of team, drama of team. Again, there's just 12 guys, sitting there, 15 on a roster, but and it's a small team, and the drama that can be involved. Do they want that drama in Cleveland? Does Dan Gilbert say, I don't care about the drama, play, you're professionals, go play, let's get to the finals and see if we can win, deal with it, which you could absolutely do because, at the end of the day, they are professionals. And when the season starts, you're supposed to be professionals and play. So maybe Dan Gilbert's saying, that's what we're going to do. And others may say, you know what, we may need to end this thing. It's ugly right now. So I don't know what side it's going to go on, but it wouldn't shock me if he remained with the Cavaliers this year. It wouldn't at all because would you have any problem with Dan Gilbert saying, you're a pro, deal with it. We're not trading you. We are the best team in the East right now, and we're going to the finals with you helping to lead this team along with LeBron, and that's not going to change.
I wouldn't trade him. Yes, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I would trade him. I don't know what Dan Gilbert's primary concern is here. So you've got two options if you're going to trade Kyrie Irving. I guess let's put it this way. We have three options. Let's pause on that thought and we'll come back. There are three options you have with Kyrie Irving. I know which one I would do if I were sitting in Dan Gilbert's shoes. I'd be curious to see which one you would choose. I think he's got three choices. We're Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. We're jam-packed today with Louis Riddick and Will Kane and Chauncey, as you mentioned, and Nick Saban and more. All our guests, as always, on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. There are a lot of other stories out there to get to this morning as well, and we will. But coming up next, you're the owner of the Cavaliers. You got three choices. All of them, I think, are actually pretty good. Unlike other teams that sort of get forced into making trades, with a proverbial gun to their head, he sort of has three good options to choose from.
Mm-hmm. Well, Greeny, we're halfway through another baseball season, and we're really seeing some players who stand out as winners.
Kind of like business travelers who win at business by staying at La Quinta Inns and Suites.
That's because you can put your La Quinta Returns loyalty points to work on the spot with instant free nights.
Just drive up with no reservation and instantly redeem points for a free night that same night simply by using the La Quinta app.
It's like hitting a grand slam.
With an app instead of a bat.
Well played.
Prepare to win at business by learning more about instant free nights and check out the summer rates at lq.com. All right, Andrea, do we have the poll ready to go? I want to get the poll question going as well on the Mike and Mike page on Twitter because I realize I think this actually is poll worthy. So you've got three options right now, and I'm going to ask Golick first what he would choose. I know which one I would choose, and then we will let you vote on it on the Mike and Mike page on Twitter. We'll let you know as soon as the poll question gets up. It seems to me right now the Cavaliers have three choices regarding Kyrie, and none of them is terrible, which is a much better situation to be in. Indiana with Paul George. You know he's walking. You have to trade him or lose him for nothing. That you have a bunch of bad options. Denver was in that situation with Carmelo once upon a time. They actually came out of it great because of a miscalculation by the Knicks, but that's a separate issue. All these teams that have to trade a star player. This is a little different because of the time remaining and the circumstances. So they've got three options. None of them are that awful. Option number one. Keep Kyrie, as you just said. Just tell him, okay, we're not trading you.
Right.
Work it out. You two guys, work it out. Lock them in a room. And don't let them come out until they work things out one way or another and play and see how it goes. So that's option number one. Option number two would be trade Kyrie Irving in a manner that loads you up for one run this year. You have one guaranteed year left of LeBron James. You got 1 year to try and knock off Golden State, and then you're going into the great
Make
abyss.
a move to win now.
Make a move that would be to win right now.
Right now.
Literally right now.
Yeah.
And then option number three is to make a trade that would prepare you for a post-LeBron world, which is make a trade of Kyrie Irving for a variety of good young players and draft picks, so that when LeBron leaves, if and when LeBron leaves, which it feels almost everyone thinks he will, that you are not staring at the abyss the way you were when he left last time. So those are your three options. None of them sound terrible. Which one, Mike, if you're Dan Gilbert, would you choose?
The first thing I would do, this isn't going to be just a one easy answer for me. Kobe Altman, the assistant GM who is now the permanent GM, I would put him in the spot to try and do it. I God forbid, get these two guys together and just talk to them. Whether it's by phone together in a conference call or in the same room. I mean, how could we not do this? And quite honestly, if I'm LeBron, I'd be the bigger man here and say, let's get together. Because why are people afraid of the face-to-face confrontation? Even if it doesn't work out, at least you've talked about this. I don't get it. So that's the first thing I would try. If I were Dan Gilbert, I'd say, Kobe, get those guys on the phone and try and get them in the same room. You go to them, they come here, whatever. Let's try and at least find out what's happening and if anything can be worked out.
Can I make a point in the form of a question?
Yes.
Do you believe that the general manager of the Cavaliers is the person who could make that happen. Like, I think
no, I don't know.
There
Maybe
are people out there who might be able to make that happen, and he's not one of them.
Okay, well, then have the general manager get a hold of somebody who can make it happen and say, can you make this happen? My point is, try and make that happen.
Someone out there who they would both listen to enough to come together. I don't know who that would be.
I don't know who it is either. But, God forbid one of them actually take the step and say, hey, you know what? Why don't, instead of all the tweets and emojis and blah, 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 and this and that, why don't you and I just go sit down?
It doesn't feel like that's happening.
I know, and it just blows my mind. God forbid that happen, even if you disagree about something. But
so that's number one.
That said, I would lean toward keeping him. The third option would be go young. I don't know how much longer I have LeBron. I'm trying to win right now. So if I have Kyrie, I know I can win. And if I trade Kyrie for others to win right now, that's what I would do. Those would be my first two options. The first one would lean more toward keeping him unless it's too far gone. That's the part I don't know. It would be too easy for me to say just keep them if there's going to be bad blood and they can't get along, because it's also easy for me to say your professionals work it out when you're with each other every minute of the day for so long, of a season, and what you have to go through with a smaller roster on the smaller planes together all the time if there's bad blood. And sometimes there's just too much. And I don't know if there is or not. And if there is, then so be it. Then you're going to have to get rid of them. But are we to that point? I need to know that first.
So I've just cast my vote, and you can vote on the Mike and Mike Twitter page.
Oh, wait, let me retweet.
Here are the options. Well, you can vote. You can retweet the poll also, but you can then cast your vote. The Cavaliers have three options regarding Kyrie Irving. Which one would you choose? Number one, keep Kyrie. Number two, trade to win now. Number three, trade for the future. I just cast my vote, and my vote is definitely trade to win now, because I think it could serve two purposes. First and foremost, championships are rare. Right? Very rare.
Yes, they are.
The notion that you would sneeze at the notion of trying to win one this year when you still have LeBron James to keep yourself from falling off a cliff next year, whilst I understand that might seem like good business, to me, if you've got a chance to win a championship, you do it. Secondly, and this is where it's sort of a sneaky answer, maybe the only way LeBron James doesn't wind up leaving Cleveland is if his last memory of it would be a parade. If you win a championship, if you manage to get him, and I don't know what trade is out there that could do this. I don't think Carmelo Anthony does it. I don't know exactly what trade does this. But if there's a trade out there that all of a sudden you win a title, I don't know, anything can happen. I'm not saying this out loud. I hate to say it out loud, but, I mean, someone on Golden State can get hurt, right? It happens.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Steph goes down, yeah. Kevin Durant goes down. Now all of a sudden the whole landscape looks different. So if the Cavaliers win a championship, maybe LeBron doesn't leave. It probably wouldn't be that easy to walk away having just won the title. So it could actually serve dual purposes. So what I would do, my option, the vote, and I just cast my vote, trade to win now. That's my vote.
Okay, I voted. I gave you an explanation, but I voted to keep him.
Keep Kyrie. So that's up there right now. We'd like you to vote on the Mike and Mike page on Twitter. It's a really good question that we have going here. We haven't even gotten to the Stephen A. sound, so let's play you that for those of you who didn't hear it. So again, Stephen A. had all the reporting that you all heard Monday into Tuesday. We played it yesterday. Everybody played it. And Stephen A. stands behind it strongly. So does ESPN, and so do I. There's under no circumstances do I think that Stephen A. made this stuff up. He was told this by someone close to LeBron. But anyway, so LeBron then went on Twitter, as Golick pointed out, and called it fake news. And Stephen A. Smith, as only he can, responded.
LeBron James, you in Dallas, stinking up the joint during the NBA Finals. You openly admitted you stunk up the joint. And how that was a growing experience for you, and how that enabled you to ultimately become a champion. But because I had the temerity, the unmitigated gall, to point out something you did in front of 50 million people, you all caught up in your feelings. And this is the same LeBron James that wants us to believe that his feelings really are of no consequence with this whole Kyrie Irving situation. Stephen A. points out what you did in front of 50 to 100 million people by stinking up the joint in your NBA Finals series against Dallas. You ain't get over that. But Kyrie Irving saying he don't want to play with the Cavaliers anymore. And this narrative about you not being happy about that suddenly is fake news. This is after people close to you, who you sign on to speak on your behalf, reach out to yours truly. And now it's fake news. Really, LeBron? Really?
So that was Stephen A. I totally believe Stephen A. I mean, it doesn't need me to stand behind it, but I certainly do believe that he was told this by someone close to LeBron. Here's the part of this that I find interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that if, like, LeBron is the most, we've mentioned this before, the most criticized immortal ever, mm-hmm. and that probably is a function more than anything of the era in which he plays.
Right.
I wonder sometimes, Michael Jordan, name others, I mean, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, others of that era, if they had lived in this era and heard as directly whatever criticism it is that's out there of
how
them,
they'd react,
if they would have reacted to it as quote unquote sensitively as LeBron sometimes seems to. I don't know either.
I don't know the answer. It's always tough to move errors, especially this, which is everything is so public all the time.
Well, because it's easy to say LeBron is sensitive, but the volume of just noise that guy hears, I mean, I could see where it would be difficult sometimes
to
not
put it
to
away.
Respond.
Obviously, the easiest thing is to put it away because it's coming from everywhere, and why give anybody the satisfaction that it got to you? But it's got to be daunting, just all the time. Every little thing you do, gets publicly, ridiculed at times.
Look, a lot of people that we know respond to stuff all the time on social media and all that kind of
absolutely.
stuff. And it's within everyone's right to do it.
Sure it
and
is.
that isn't news. But when LeBron James responds to anything, it's enormous news. You know what I mean? It isn't really that different of a thing. He's just so, he's just so exponentially more famous than everybody else is that when he does something, it's noteworthy. So I don't know. Do you think that he's overly sensitive?
I think at times he's absolutely overly sensitive. Yeah.
Criticism.
Yes, to criticism. I think we see a lot of guys, to use the term today, clap back, when they get criticized. I think we see that more, and then they have an outlet to do it. That's why it is fair to ask. You can't be an old-time player and say, all these guys need to stop being sensitive, because we hadn't lived in the era of this where it could be on you all the time. It would just be a beat writer or a news at night or something, or ESPN, when everything else wasn't out there. There were a lot less ways for you to get criticized, where now there's a ton of ways, especially by the regular person out there, has a way to get to you as well, and sometimes you would answer back to them. So yeah, it is a more difficult time to just put it away. It's easy to say just put it away and don't respond because you're not the one getting it thrown at you all the time. And I think could Stephen A. be the Conor McGregor of the sports world without the swearing? I mean, the dude can trash it up, can he? Can trash talk it, can be loud and do his thing and go after someone?
Well, yeah. He was standing up for himself. And in this case, LeBron James basically said, your report is fake news.
Right.
And Stephen A. is saying, no, it's not. That's simple. I mean, that's what he's saying. He's basically saying...
He said. No, right?
Yeah. But, I mean, in this particular case... You can, if you choose to, you can go on one side or the other.
Oh, sure, but it's still, he said one thing and he said another thing.
Right.
I mean, it's what it is.
LeBron is basically saying no one told you that.
Right.
That's bad information.
Right.
I don't believe that for a second.
I'm at the point I don't know what to believe with people if I don't hear it myself. Who knows?
All right, we've got lots more to do here on this. And again, the question is up. The poll question, the Cavaliers have 3 options regarding Kyrie Irving. Which one would you choose? Keep Kyrie, trade to win now, or trade for the future? Cast your vote on the Mike and Mike page on Twitter.
You're listening to Love Advice with Leanne. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Leanne. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Why, in your professional opinion, do you never take my calls off the air?
Is this Carl?
Yep, it's Carl. I mean, we had a few dates. Everything was great. I thought,
Well, when you switch to Geico, you could save a lot of money on car insurance.
Okay, awesome.
You should call them.
I will.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
All right, so we've been talking a lot about millennials and how millennials communicate with the whole Kyrie and LeBron. Even though LeBron's 32, he's still part of that era of, or this era of, how millennials communicate with tweets and emojis and with their phone more than talking on the phone, actually talking to somebody or meeting with people. So we brought that up, and we both agreed about that. And then my son, do I dare say it again, clap back. Is that a big term?
That's a term.
Yeah, that's a term. We were out to lunch a bit ago, Mike, myself, and my wife, Chris. And so Mike tweeted this picture out then, and he just retweeted it. Look at these millennials unable to have a real conversation. Millennials are killing family lunches. And it's a picture. He took a picture of Chris and I at the table eating lunch, both of us on our phones.
And she's looking at a meme, too.
She's looking at a meme, exactly right.
Which is even funnier.
Yeah, I'm on my phone. She's on the phone. Mike took a picture of us on our phone and said, oh, yeah, it's the millennials who are causing all of this. And
Listen,
here we are, a couple of 50-some-year-olds on our phones at the table.
He makes a good point.
No, he doesn't. Don't give him that.
He makes a good point. And let's make this Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. I not to get too deep into this, but I one time was at a lecture by a really, really smart guy, and he was a Harvard professor in the Harvard School of Education, in which he described technology in the following way. You and I are technology immigrants.
Yes.
We weren't raised with this.
Right.
So we are in it. We use it. There's you and Chris sitting right there. We're all about the same age. I mean, roughly speaking, the same age. There's you and Chris looking at memes. Your wife tweets like crazy. You tweet a little.
Yeah, retweet a lot.
You retweet a lot. And all of that kind of stuff. I do. My wife does. I mean, we're actively involved in social media and other things. But we weren't raised with it. Our kids, your kids and mine, were raised. They're technology natives. This has always been the world in which they live. And they are able thus, like you tell me if you've had this experience. I will be sitting watching the Red Zone, which in and of itself, if you're watching Red Zone channel, in and of itself, that's a lot of stimuli, right? They're going back and forth between games. Sometimes there's three. Yes. Sometimes they go quad box.
Quad box.
There's like 4 games
every
on
now
the
and then.
same screen. I can't even follow what's going on there.
Yeah.
My son, who's sitting next to me, can do that with his laptop on his lap with our DraftKings lineup on it and be paying attention to that, and his phone in his hand where he's Snapchatting with other people, and he can do all of those things at once and not miss any of it.
So,
and that's the difference.
Okay.
So you're at this lunch.
Okay.
You and Chris are on your phones, and that is to the complete exclusion of anything else that is going on around you, whereas your kids could be at that same lunch. They could be on their phones and also be interacting with you at the same time and not miss a beat.
That's the thing about the interaction, because according to a research study done by Men's Health, and this is where it goes. It's one thing to be in the era of today and, like your son, be able to do all those things. And my kids can, I'm with you, can do all those different things. But according to this study, 68% of millennials actively avoid face-to-face conversations. So it's like you're getting one and giving up the other. My point is, why can't you do both? Now, I know a lot of their conversation is not face-to-face. I guess I'm like, but you're actively avoiding face-to-face. It's not like we just don't talk face-to-face anymore, but you avoid talking face-to-face.
Right.
And just do it, with your phone.
Well, and notice the word that was used there, avoid face-to-face conversations, not just confrontation.
Right.
Conversations of any kind.
Any kind.
And that's a bad thing, my opinion.
Yes, I agree.
It's a bad thing because it is going to become sort of a lost skill. So much of communication, but it's also... It's going to eventually become neither a good thing nor a bad thing. It's just going to be the way the world is. And to sit here and bemoan it is to be an old fart.
Yes, I agree with that.
That's just the way things are going to be.
I agree with that. Can I ask one other question of you?
Sure.
You said you went to a lecture?
Yes.
When was this?
I didn't go to, this person came and spoke at the school where my kids go. He came and spoke.
And you weren't in school and you just went to a lecture?
I'm a trustee at the school, and so he came and spoke to the trustees at our retreat.
And you didn't have to?
I did not have to. No, he was the speaker at our board retreat.
And you went to it?
I went to it. And it was fascinating.
Oh, I'm sure.
He wrote a book called The Education Gap, and it was actually very, very interesting.
Last lecture I went to, I had to write a paper on it. I was in school. Choose to go to a lecture.
We have slightly different interests in our downtime. I mean, I go hear lectures and things like that, and you do what?
A talk. It was a lecture.
He spoke.
It makes it
was
sound
a lecture.
so much more,
It was a speech.
La-di-da.
Use anywhere you want.
I went to go listen to a guy talk. It's not that.
The dude came and
talked.
talked.
I went to listen to his lecture.
He had a lectern from which he spoke.
He did a lecture at the lectern?
That's why I called it a lecture. Wow. Straight Talk Wireless nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. All right. We got other stuff to get to.
Yeah.
And we probably won't.
Probably not.
Next on Mike and Mike.
America, it's time for some straight talk. You love your phone. Look at you. You hardly put it down. But you don't love that expensive wireless plan, do you? So what if I told you can keep that phone network and number 2 for a lot less? Well, this is me telling you. It's time to switch to Straight Talk, guys. Bring your own phone and get unlimited plans starting at just $45 a month on America's largest, most dependable 4G LTE networks. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
We're Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. The soap opera that is the NBA offseason continues to entertain and amaze. A few more thoughts on that. We'll update our poll question here, and then we'll dive into a couple of other stories, including news from the National Football League, or at least peripherally so, that is disturbing, to say the least, but requires, I think, a level of clarity that the headline doesn't always provide.
Right.
But we will. So we'll get to all of those. Meanwhile, let me read you a couple tweets here. 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Marie tweets, LeBron put Kyrie on the superstar path. He seems ungrateful. Leave without slamming the people that got you there.
Well, listen, Kyrie was a great player. Kyrie is a great player. And Kyrie got to play along with LeBron, and they made it to some finals. I think Kyrie was always going to be a great player. I would believe that. So I don't – do we have to sit there and say he owes LeBron something for that? I don't know if Kyrie says I'm a great player because of LeBron James, and I and this team, we got to the finals a number of times. But I don't know if we can say Kyrie is going to sit there and say, understand, ego's involved, and I don't mean it in a bad way. Do we think Kyrie is saying, yes, the only reason I'm as good as I am is because I played with LeBron James? I highly doubt that.
I also don't know that he's slamming LeBron James. That's the thing. He's told the team he wants to be traded. We don't know specifically why he wants to be traded or what he told them, and he hasn't come out publicly and said anything. So where this took the turn to the ugly place that it sort of went was with the reporting from Stephen A. that Kyrie's camp believes LeBron's camp leaked his trade demand or desire, or whichever one it is. That's where it turned ugly, but at least there's certainly been no public slamming of Kyrie by anybody.
That's why we don't know. We really don't know the inner workings of all this, and it still blows my mind that somebody you think could help get the two guys together and actually have a conversation.
How about the coach? So you brought up the general manager. Ty Lue is sort of the hand-picked coach. He's well-regarded, well-respected.
Seems to be well-respected, so maybe that's a guy that could do it and say, hey, understanding that if the GM and the coach are trying to do this, they have maybe a little bit of bias toward keeping Kyrie because they know that's what can happen. But really, it's just to get them in a room and basically let them talk. Say, hey, guys, what's going on here? Are we past the point? And you know what? And if you get in the same room and you realize you're past the point, then you're past the point. Okay. But to me, that's the best way to find out. But I don't know if we'll ever find. I have no idea. No clue.
If you read the book that Brian Windhorst and Dave McMenamin did about the Cavaliers championship season, there's a great story in it about Ty Lue getting into LeBron during Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And LeBron going right back at him, and one of the teammates, now I can't remember who, saying to LeBron, you're not doing what you said you would do. You're not listening to him. You're not following him the way you said you would. And LeBron took that out on the court and wound up playing one of the great second halves of all time with the block and wins the championship. So Ty Lue has, I believe he has the respect of those guys. Are they beyond the point? Look, it may not even be like. This thing seems to have disintegrated to a place now it probably didn't have to go. I mean, Kyrie's desire to go play someplace else is certainly not unheard of, and it doesn't necessarily have to mean those two guys hate each other.
Right.
So who the hell knows? At this point.
I'm with you. I completely agree. So we keep speculating, or we have guys trying to find out from camps what's going on. So we get some information, then that information is refuted by a person, by one of the actual people involved in this. So what direction do you go? What direction to believe? I don't know, but fun to talk about, as we said, like, my trash magazines.
And one more thing before we move on. So we have the poll question up at Mike and Mike on Twitter. The Cavaliers have three options regarding Kyrie Irving. Which one would you choose? A, keep Kyrie. B, trade him to try to win now. Mm-hmm. C, trade for the future. Right now, trade to win now is leading slightly, but they're all kind of tightly bunched.
It's actually pretty close, yeah.
It's an interesting question, though, that I brought up during the break here. Is there a trade that could theoretically happen? I mean, don't say for Kevin Durant. A trade that you could reasonably see happening that puts Cleveland closer to winning a title than they are right now.
I don't see it.
I don't either.
I don't see it
I don't think there's a trade out there that you could reasonably don't give me Anthony Davis. They're not trading
it's not
Anthony
happen.
Davis for Kyrie Irving. It's not going to happen.
Let's just not throw out big names. It's not going to happen. Yeah,
I'll stand corrected if they do.
Yeah,
I cannot imagine they're going to trade Anthony Davis for Kyrie Irving.
From basically all we're hearing is they're not going to get value back, the most value that they can. So I
mean, if the Knicks are offering you anybody but Kristaps Porzingis, what is that? That's like offering you anybody but LeBron James.
What did Chris Haynes bring up last night when he was talking to us?
He brought up Boston, a package that could potentially include Isaiah Thomas, Jaylen Brown, Jay Crowder, and a draft pick.
So if we're talking about win now, forget the draft pick, but it's certainly nice to have. As far as winning now, you get some depth with the other two, and then Isaiah Thomas, that's a step down.
Isaiah Thomas is a step down from Kyrie Irving, but it's not falling off a cliff.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
What did they really miss? What do they need against? One of the things they needed against Golden State last year was guys to defend on the perimeter, athleticism, length. You get a little more of that with those
with the
other guys.
Other guys, right.
It's not terrible. It's not terrible.
Of all the thought processes out there, getting those three, because you were talking about Minnesota, you're talking about Wiggins, who's certainly a nice wing player. I
don't know that they would do it.
Minnesota would want to give that up. But
I don't see Tom Thibodeau trading for a guy who doesn't play defense.
I agree with you, but given those two scenarios of Cleveland would certainly be still in a good place, but I don't think better than they are right now with Kyrie.
You want to talk about a major trade that would thus be taking place. Again, this is pure speculation, but if it did, between the top two contenders in the conference. I mean, that doesn't happen often, right? That you've got two teams that met
not at all.
As non-competitive as it was. Boston was actually the 1 seed and had home court advantage, but those are the two teams that met in the Eastern Conference
That would be
final.
amazing. That would be too good to be true. That's why it won't happen.
There's any number of reasons it won't happen, but it is an example of a trade that might leave Cleveland in a place where they could still win a title, where you could trade away Kyrie and you might still be able to win a title.
Still get there to have the chance.
There aren't a lot of those.
I agree with that.
Out there normally when you trade a player of that caliber. Anyway, cast a vote on the poll question. We'll continue to discuss this as the morning continues. Where Mike and Mike were presented by Progressive Insurance. And now you can test drive Snapshot even if you have insurance with another company. See how much you can save before you switch. All right, the headlines yesterday were stunning and jarring and significant, but also require some explanation. So the headline is CTE was found in nearly 90% of brains donated by football players. And the immediate assumption that we would make if you read that is, oh my goodness, 90% of football players wind up with CTE.
Right.
That isn't actually a direct path through this. And Dr. Ann McKee, who's the neuropathologist who examined the brains during the study, isn't pretending that it is. So you get the data, you look at it, you come up with a very, very not inaccurate headline.
Well, the headline said
110
of 111 NFL brains have CTE. So, to Ann McKee's credit, she doesn't write the headline.
Correct.
So that's because a headline now in social media is just what newspapers would do, right? The person who wrote the story didn't write the headline, correct? You correct me if I'm wrong, but they did not, right?
Well, certainly in newspapers they did
not.
Right.
So that's where I'm going. So the newspaper, they're not, but the headline, what's the headline meant to do?
It's meant to make you want to read the story.
So now we're scrolling through our social media and you see 110 of 111 NFL brains have CTE. Click. Right?
Of course.
You click it. So that's what you're going to do. It wants to get clicks. And I guess that's what I would urge is click it and read it, the whole thing.
Research on 202 former football players found evidence of a brain disease linked to repeated head blows in nearly all of them from athletes in the NFL, college, and even high school. It's the largest update on chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, a debilitating brain disease that can cause a range of symptoms, including memory loss. The report was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. Here are the actual details. CTE was diagnosed in 177 former players, nearly 90% of brains that were studied. That includes 110 of 111 brains from former NFL players. Now, let's make clear, this was a biased study,
right?
And it was not. It does not purport to be other than that. These were brains that were donated specifically by families of former NFL players because they wanted their brains studied. Thus, there was reason to believe that there were problems, and thus they would be found there. It does not follow that 110 out of every 111 people who played football would have CTE. It is, however, in and of itself, a startling and disturbing finding that 110 of these 111 former players were found to have CTE. The family of the one that did not or was not found to have it did not want his name released. So we do not know which one player there was no finding of CTE in his brain. But those are the big picture facts. We can get into a little more small detail, but of course, Mike, people will want to hear your reaction.
Well, they will, and that's why I would say click it and read the entire article. Are we finding out more and more about CTE? Yes, we are. But and so many people, because then I found an old, not an old, but it isn't old at all. It's pretty recent, an article from Yahoo, and this one is from the New York Times, I believe, right? And there are people that are questioning both outlets, and I don't care about the outlets because I'm reading the quotes of doctors. So I don't care about the opinion of who's writing the article or where the article is coming from. I'm talking about doctors, whether it's Ann McKee, or other doctors from and other articles in what they're talking about and what more study we need to do. There was a study in the Journal of the American Medical Association just a month earlier to this one that was titled "The Association of Playing High School Football with Cognition and Mental Health Later in Life." And they took a group of 9 people who played in the 1950s. 4,000 former athletes played football in the 50s. There was no statistical or clinically significant harmful association between football in high school and increased cognitive impairment or depression later in life on average. Now, again, you take that and you say, okay, but it's the 50s. Football. So even something like that people may want to use for the other side of this, but you still have to take that with a grain of salt and say, wait a minute, football's way different than the 50s.
They didn't have face masks at some point in there, so they didn't use their head.
They didn't use their head as much. So there is still statistics and situations that you have to kind of look at and what are you reading? I'll go to another one with Ann McKee. In May, she spoke at the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. They put on a Brain Trust Summit, and McKee was the featured speaker. And one of the things she told the audience, there are millions of innocent people that are at risk with early stages, are very symptomatic and show irrational behavior, personality changes, and often suicidal. She said there are millions of innocent people that are at risk. She was called after this and interviewed by phone after this and asked about that comment. And she basically, when asked if millions are at risk for this suicide, she said, well, we're not there yet. But that's the concern. We have a lot more studies to do. There's evidence that things like this lifestyle and economics have something to do with CT. We're not ready to make sweeping statements. But what's the headline? Millions of innocent people are at risk. And that's the issue. And that's not Ann McKee's fault. She didn't, again, make the headline. But when that's the headline that you read, but then she's talked to by phone later and gives all this other information, that's what you want. So should the headline be millions of innocent people are at risk, or we have a lot more studies to do? Every time I say there's a lot more studies to do, people want to yell at me, think all I do is defend football. There's doctors saying it. Doctor after doctor after doctor saying there are more studies to do. They want to know, are steroids involved? Are opioids involved? Is depression involved? Is depression before CT? Does it lead to that? There's more studies to do, and there need to be more studies that are random studies, not biased studies. Mark Hersig, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Commissioner of Mental Health and Concussion Task Force Chairman, says it would be great to study the brains of all the famous musicians and actors who killed themselves and battled depression, addiction, medication. We need comparisons to the general population and others with mental illness to really tease this issue out and make better assumptions. Now, all that said, does repeatedly hitting your head in any sport, again, football gets the brunt of all this. There are plenty of other sports where the head gets hit, okay? Does repetitive head trauma lead to CTE? And we're finding out more and more evidence. We're obviously having athletes post-mortem finding out they have CTE. One of the great breakthroughs is going to be when we can do this test on living people. Don't think I just want to bash everything, gang. There's a percentage of people that just played in college football that has CTE. My 2 boys played in college football. Why the hell would I not be concerned about some of the percentages of what's going on? And the percentages grow when you go into the NFL. I played 9 years. Now, I've had 0 symptoms. I'm 54 years old, but who knows? But I've most of my friends, in all honesty, are fine. But certainly there are some that are not. But why is it so hard for me to keep saying let's learn more when the doctors are saying that. The worst part of this, there's the NFL side of it. But these are, again, grown men who are learning more and more and can make their own decisions. You heard what Wes Welker said.
Yeah.
Wes Welker's had some of the most documented concussions out there, and he said, hey, I'm not living day to day thinking my brain's going to explode.
Right.
He said, I'm not living that way. And there are other players who are scared to death about what might happen. Here's my issue, or my fear is the wrong word, my concern, is when you see these headlines and have these articles, forgetting the NFL side of it, it's more along the lines of what my wife is doing with youth football, because that's where it all starts. And they talk about percentages going down, but as I said, still much more study to go. Is parents deciding if their kid should play or not? What do they read? Are they reading this article? Are they reading that article? Are they listening to this doctor? Are they listening to that doctor? Are they just seeing the headline and saying, my kid's not playing? That's the people who you want to do the most homework, but where does their homework go? I had so many people tweet this article to me about the 110 out of 111, and I said, it's a great article. Did you read it? Did you read the whole thing through? And then I tweeted the other article out there that said there are other doctors who have different thoughts, but they all agree we need to learn more. There's no doubt repetitive head trauma is going to have some effect on you, but let's continue to find out what it is and read all the information out there. And that's what I say to the young parents out there. If you read what you read and decide your kid shouldn't play, then that's fine. But there's a lot of information. That's who I feel for. Because where do those parents go for all their information? Because there's a lot of it out there. A lot of it out there for them to try and digest to see if their 8-year-old, their 10-year-old should go out and play some football or not. Or, for that matter, any contact sport where their head can get hit.
I think that the only legitimate answer right now is, as you keep saying, we don't really know. There isn't any question.
But the really don't, and I hate to cut you off, but really don't know, how does that help the parent when you sign up for your kid this month to play football?
No, it doesn't.
That's the tough part.
So my question to you is, are numbers diminishing in participation in youth football?
The numbers were diminishing. The latest I had gotten was in the last couple of years they had been going back up again. So and youth football has taken a move to take more hitting out of practice, flag football, this rookie football. I don't think you were here when we had Bill Polian on talking about the next level of less players on the field and no linemen in three-point stances, and another level flag, rookie football, and then tackle football. So they're taking measures in football. Again, you're not going to make the game safe. You're still going to get hurt, but levels along the way that you can do. But that's what young parents are dealing with right now, is what do I do with my kid when I'm reading that headline or reading this headline and I'm sitting here saying, read all of it. Well, do you want to sit there and read hundreds of articles before you make a decision that Johnny wants to go play with his buddies, who he goes to school with, to go play a little football? It's tough.
It is tough. And there are a couple of other places. The loudest voices on this subject do not belong to doctors. They belong to former players. So when you've got guys like Bo Jackson and some of the others who said, I wouldn't want my kids or my grandchildren or whatever it is to go out and play football, I think that reverberates.
Yes.
I think people hear that loudly.
I agree.
I think that it's important. Again, this study, many donors or their families contributed the brains because of players' repeated concussions and troubling symptoms before they died.
Right.
Meaning these 111 players, there was a reason to think this number was going to be perhaps disproportionately high to all football players. However, you don't know. The thing that makes you angry a little bit is the way this was covered up for all the years that it was. It makes you really angry when you think about what the NFL did. However, now I think that for whatever the reasons are, they are putting a ton of money into trying to get these answers. Here's the reality for the mom and dad of little Johnny, who's 8 years old right now. You're not going to have a concrete answer. You're not going to have a concrete answer between now and the time that kid graduates from high school to this question.
But what I'll say, because I am certainly an advocate of football, but I don't bury my head in the sand about what's going on. As I say now, your kids may not be in a better time to be playing football because more is being done now in the game of football, from proper technique, less hitting in practice, equipment getting better. We're in a better position now than we've ever been because of recognizing all of this. So that's the one part that I look at to try and tell parents who are on the fence of, We may be in the best time because we had some of the best recognition of, okay, there are issues out there, and we're finding out more and more. But you read that one side of it that really looks damning on one side, and another doctor saying without population-level samples, a more random testing, it's difficult to estimate the base rate of long-term dysfunction among professional football players, much less among high school players. So you get both sides of that. But you're right. The people that are making the decision today, by the time their kids go through, there still may not be an answer.
And you know what? You just read that sentence, and it's a complicated sentence.
Yeah.
And Bo Jackson saying, I don't want my kid to play football
Yep.
is a simple sentence.
Exactly right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So if
I agree.
I've got an 8-year-old, I've told you this before. My son, I only have one son, and he never wanted to play football. He always liked basketball, and that's what he plays, and that's fine. And so I never had to decide whether he was going to play football or not. And I've told you, my wife many times, who I would have 100% expected to be on the other side, has said repeatedly, yeah, if he wanted to play football, she would have let him. Now, high school, college,
Right.
all of that was unlikely anyway. But, when he was 9 and a bunch of his kids went and played peewee football or whatever it is in town, he wasn't interested, and so he didn't. She says she would have let him. But a lot of other people, a lot of moms and dads will hear that. Read that sentence again, because that was a complicated sentence.
Without population-level sample.
Complicated words.
It is difficult to estimate the base rate of long-term dysfunction among professional football players.
Complicated words.
Much less among high school players.
Complicated words. Bo Jackson, my son's not playing. Simple words.
You wish they would write it in a way that was a little...
Right,
yeah.
but I mean, do you hear my point? I mean,
listen,
so when you're looking at information, you got this,
I
and that's
understand what
easy,
you're saying.
and that's hard to read.
And I guess while hearing Bo Jackson, knowing who is saying that is going to have an impact, I would say... My point is I would listen to doctors on the subject who actually study this and know more what they're talking about. But then you read doctors differing on it, and then you're like, okay, what the hell do I do now?
Right, and doctors aren't famous, and a whole bunch of former football players are.
Well, Greeny, we're halfway through another baseball season, and we're really seeing some players who stand out as winners.
Kind of like business travelers who win at business by staying at La Quinta Inns and Suites.
That's because you can put your La Quinta Returns loyalty points to work on the spot with instant free nights.
Just drive up with no reservation and instantly redeem points for a free night that same night simply by using the La Quinta app.
It's like hitting a grand slam.
With an app instead of a bat.
Well played.
Prepare to win at business by learning more about instant free nights and check out the summer rates at lq.com. Joining us now in our studio is our NFL insider extraordinaire. That's Louis Riddick with perspective on this business with the latest CTE study, and then we'll get to some actual football, and then we'll get to some other business as well. Good morning, Louis Riddick.
Good morning. How are you?
We're doing great. We both enjoyed you and I watching Golick stirring his coffee with a Sharpie here during the break.
I'm telling you, that's a D lineman for you, man. They don't care.
No, don't care one bit.
And then he like took the coffee off of the Sharpie.
Well, I didn't want the coffee. I stir it.
You know what, though?
But then I don't want the coffee to drip on the table. So take the coffee off
in many
the Sharpie.
ways, though, I respect that. Though.
Well,
See, that's the thing. See,
and if I have your respect, I'm happy.
Hey, I'm sure you care.
You do it with a pen all the time. There's something different about the Sharpie. I can't explain why.
Yeah.
It's just there's just something about it. It just doesn't.
Bottom line, you know what it does? The job.
It does.
There you
the
go.
coffee is stirred, and Golick is happy.
There we go.
All right, back to the really serious business here. You saw the findings in this latest study, the results of which were published yesterday in the Journal of the American Medical Association. Again, it does not mean that 110 out of every 111 people who played football are going to have CTE. This was a study of donors and families who contributed because of the players' repeated concussions and troubling symptoms before they died. But it does not mean that the findings are not themselves startling and disturbing. So as one who played football for a really long time, and B, one who is now as intimately connected to the sport as you remain, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, Greeny, it's one of those things, again, that makes you sit back, start assessing your own physical state, your mental state, your emotional state. You start to wonder, are I displaying some of the signs that maybe some of these guys had in any way, shape, or form? It makes you then spin it forward to, if you do have children, what is the proper age to start having these young men start playing football? Playing a game that obviously guys like myself, guys like Mike, people who played the game all the way to the highest level are a little bit biased in terms of what the game did for us. So you always are going to defend the game. You always are going to want to advocate for playing football because of all the lessons it teaches you. But this is the kind of data that you can't dispute, although obviously it's a little bit skewed because of the fact that as you read, some of these guys are started displaying symptoms that their families were concerned about. But when you have a young son like I have, who, when I sit there and I look at him, I think back to myself when I was 6, 7, 8 years old, and I started playing football when I was 7. You start going, do I need to really start rethinking that? And some of the literature, some of the the studies say that maybe you should, that it shouldn't be the same as it was for us. And then, what if, is it going to eventually at some point in time, is the research going to say maybe you shouldn't be playing football at all? I mean, I don't know where this is going. I heard you guys talking about this because you don't know where it's going. You won't have all the information, and you will have to just try and make an educated guess. But it's hard for me to kind of really – I'm so biased towards defending the game because of the fact of what it did for my family, what it's done for me, what it's done for my children. I mean, it's something that I defend staunchly, but these kind of studies are concerning. They are concerning without a doubt. It would be great if somewhere along the line the technology and the medicine was able to tell you more while players are living and while they are going through these symptoms, whether or not this is something that is happening to them, as they're still alive. You just hope that it makes the kind of advances that you can kind of help players along while they're still here.
So I'm going to put you on the spot in a second, but one other story, and some of these I read of a neurologist who had said, she sees, younger patients, and younger, I mean kids, high school to college, who, have had concussions, and so many of them think they have CTE. And one swore he had CTE, and she was trying to say, we're not sure, but was so past the point of thinking that he had CTE and it was the end that he killed himself.
Yeah.
And post-mortem, they looked at his brain. He had no signs of CTE at all. So this is where mentally it gets just what you were talking about, and we're in such a tough place with it. But so let me put you on the spot. Everybody, you're so recognizable. Player, front office, on ESPN. So you're in an airport somewhere. What if some mom comes up to you, and which could easily happen to you, and say, my son is 9 years old, and I'm thinking about having him play tackle football. What would you say? Now you have to tell her something.
Well, considering the fact that I have a son who's 6, I would sit there and probably say, you know what, err on the side of caution and don't have him play tackle. Wait until he's a little bit older, until his body's a little bit more developed, and kind of lessen the chances of him taking repeated shots to the head to where it will have a long-term effect on him. Because I think, right now, as I'm sitting here and you hear about this study and you start thinking about it, and it's really not something I think about yet because he's not of the age where he's actually even said he wants to start playing football yet, but I'm probably going to hold him back and have him wait, but I'm not going to discourage him from playing the game. It's just you're going to take a more educated, more intelligent approach to when is the right time for him to start. Literally, no pun intended, start banging heads with guys. Though, that's what you have to do, and if you don't, and you just ignore this, I don't think that's smart, obviously.
And the one good thing you see, we had numbers up there, was just on the screen. Numbers in flag football have gone up, and as I said. In USA football, youth football, they're trying what's called rookie football right now, which is in pads, but it's less people on the field, a smaller field. Bill Poling is part of the group that was helping put that together. So I think that's another step. And so you have other things as well before you get to the actual tackle. Different parents could feel in different situations. So it was up slightly. I think that this in the year 2015, it was up from the year before. Flag football has been up as well. So we'll see what direction it goes as options are there for the youth.
I will say that youth football, it's funny because back when we were younger, youth football was advertised, and it just seemed like it was everywhere. And to me now, just observing it day to day in real life where I live, you just don't see it being talked about and kind of being advertised and being pushed and publicized the way it was when I was a kid.
Which is interesting because the numbers are up.
Right. And I'm glad they are, quite honestly. But, you always saw sign-up banners everywhere, and there were, shops where they were selling youth football equipment and see now everything is geared towards soccer in the town that I live in and all and I'm glad that the numbers are trending forward because there was a time now where I was a little bit worried because no kids were talking about it, and I'm just glad that it's moving in the right direction in that regard.
All right, Mike and Mike, Louis Riddick is here with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. There aren't easy answers to these questions, but we will continue to seek them out for you. And again, the Journal of American, or the American Journal, what is it? The Journal of the American Medical Association was where this study was published yesterday. All right, there's a bunch of other football stuff out there. Let me ask you one quickly here, and then we'll break shortly and get to some other stuff. RG3 works out with the Chargers. Our understanding is that workout went well. What exactly is RG3 now, and how do you believe that will inform the greater Colin Kaepernick conversation when people see a player like RG3 who I think by anyone's estimation is not nearly what Colin Kaepernick is at this moment as a player, and he looks like he's going to get signed, especially if he does get signed and Kaepernick continues not to? Well,
I'll kind of take it in reverse order. Obviously, with RG3 having his tires kicked, so to speak, as they like to say in the NFL, it tells you really all you need to know about what is driving the decision-making as far as him getting a workout and getting a look and Colin Kaepernick not. And we know what that is. We know what the concerns are, and because they've been stated. I mean, the owner of the Giants, Mr. Mara, came out and said there's a concern there, even though that they weren't interested in the guy. But there is a concern. Fan bases have reached out to certain teams and said, hey, look, we're concerned about having this guy as a part of our, meaning the fans, our organization. And that's not something that's new. Where people stand on that, is up to their own individual opinions. But we know what the issue is here. As far as where is RG3, look, I don't care how he does in a workout, quite honestly. I mean, I've been through 100 workouts and watched 100 quarterbacks throw the football in individual private workouts. RG3's issue is not a workout issue. It's a functional playing the game issue, which I don't think he's been doing anything right now that would suggest that all of a sudden his game is going to be different. He's still a guy who's lost in the pocket, doesn't know how to navigate the pocket, has inconsistent fundamentals, and his accuracy is all over the map. So where has that? What has he done to change that? He hasn't been playing. So I really, this workout and saying that he looked good, I could care less, quite honestly.
But he got a workout,
right?
And they said he looked good. As far as Kaepernick, do you think Kaepernick should be talking? Do you think he should speak? Do you think he should talk about a love for say what NFL teams maybe want to hear?
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's about necessarily what NFL teams want to hear, but I think if the fact of the matter is that he still loves the game and he wants to play and it's important to him and he wants to, be a part of a team, be a part of an organization in whatever capacity he can be and be supportive and be a positive locker room presence, which are all the things that the people in the know who were out in San Francisco and his former head coach like Chip Kelly have said he was, contrary to what some people have been saying about it, the fact that he was disruptive, which, Chip has totally disputed, then yeah, why wouldn't he come out and defend himself and say, hey, look, despite how I feel on these social issues, which I have a right to feel and people don't have a right to sit here and continue bashing me, I am someone who still loves the game. John Lynch, I think, spoke about the fact that that's what he should do. So sure, he should. I think he'd be well within his right, and I think people would like to hear that from him.
Mike Louis Riddick is with us in our studio. Coming up next, we're going to put you in the impossible position of being the man right now in charge of not the Cleveland Browns, which is tough enough on its own, but the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Oh, boy.
Now what do you do?
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Mike and Louis Riddick in our studio. We have a question up, a poll question on the Mike and Mike page on Twitter, and it reads as follows. The Cavaliers have 3 options regarding Kyrie Irving. Which one would you choose? A, keep Kyrie. B, trade to win now. C, trade for the future. 40% say trade to win now, and that is leading what is a pretty close poll. So you're familiar with the circumstances of this, Louis, and again, you have a variety of interest, of experience that I think would inform a good opinion here because you played for a long time, so you know the dynamic, the interpersonal dynamics of teammates, and then you've been in the front office for a long time, so you understand, the people who have to try and figure out a way to make these two guys want to work together. So now, you're Ty Lue or you're Kobe Altman or you're Dan Gilbert. What do you do?
Yeah, this is a tough one, and I'll tell you what, it's tough for someone who comes from a football background because in football, it really is about out of yourself and into the team, and you don't hear players really making these kinds of waves the same way that now you see on the regular here in basketball about how guys will quickly go from about the team to what's good for me. And what's good for me is getting with the best guys I possibly can get with and trying to win championships. And, what's good for the team, I'm not really that concerned with. But in this case right here, considering that they are the behemoths in the East, and if I'm the front office right now, I'm doing everything I can, quite honestly, being that LeBron still has another year to play there in Cleveland before he's eligible for free agency. I'm trying to keep these two guys together here because I'm looking out for what's best for the team as a front office person. As a player, if I'm LeBron and I'm Kyrie, I think right now we're both better with each other. And if we want to have any shot, quite honestly, of competing with Golden State in the West when we get to the finals, which arguably, you would assume that if they keep this team intact, they will get back to the finals again. Then I'm trying to really bridge this until 2018 and then seeing what happens from there. Look, I get it though. I see the transformation really though in basketball, watching it from the outside, about how these guys are very mercurial. They're very much so on a razor's edge about what's good for them, and they will, in a minute, it seems like, want to change their situation and go somewhere else, and they really are not. It's not the same mentality as football. It really isn't. These guys are different. They look at things, I think, very much so individualistically, a lot more than what happens in football, and that's got to be tough. That's got to be tough for GMs and owners to deal with in the NBA, quite honestly.
So along those lines, we were talking about the millennials and the age of the players today. Do you think it's more of a millennial thing that they don't get together and talk, or do you think it is a sport thing?
I really do think. Well, it may be a little bit of both, Gold, quite honestly. I don't know if communication among the quote-unquote millennials is the same as it is for the older generation, because right now, look, just look at it when you go anywhere out in public. How many people do you actually see sitting there and actually having a conversation, and how many people do you see with their head down like this, just going away on their iPhones? People don't really talk about things anymore until it kind of reaches a critical point like it is right now in Cleveland. Yeah. Then you got to put people together and actually start talking. Right now, it's all about, well, sources are telling me that you're mad. Sources are telling me that you're leaving. Well, I hear the sources, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like, oh, well, maybe we should sit down and actually talk about something here.
It doesn't make sense, huh?
And that's what it seems like it's getting to there in Cleveland, unfortunately.
This happens very seldom in football. One example of it, you tell me if you think there's a similarity here, would be Donovan McNabb and T.O. in Philadelphia, right? Where there was that one was based in money, whereas this one isn't based in money. But that one was about money. T.O. didn't think that Donovan went to bat for him to get his money after Donovan got his, and T.O. got mad, and he went public with his being mad, and he tried to turn the locker room against Donovan, and the whole thing became a mess, and they wound up sending T.O. away.
Yeah,
that's the closest thing I can think of in football to something like this. Does that make sense to you guys? Does that seem similar?
It does a little bit, although, that relationship, I wasn't in Philly when that happened, but that relationship seemed a lot more toxic, and there was really some true, dislike between those two guys, where this one doesn't seem like that. LeBron just doesn't, and I don't know LeBron, but this doesn't come across to me like, he had any kind of real animosity towards Kyrie, or Kyrie have any animosity towards him, and I'm just speaking from what I've been reading and what you kind of observe. This just seems like a situation here where one guy, again, not knowing the entire situation, just seems like he wants to change the scenery and he wants to be the guy and just doesn't want to be the little brother anymore. And I guess that's okay. It just doesn't work like that when you have 53 guys on a football team where one guy can really hold a whole organization hostage like this guy, Kyrie, can hold really Cleveland hostage right now.